Houston, we have a clone, and oh no, Blizzard. Okay, if he starts spawning stuff, we're gonna see some Murloc. Okay, we're fine, we're fine. And oh god, hold. Oh, loud, they coming. We got the great firewall here holding them back. Oh my god. Welcome back, everyone. We've got an old Murkeye video double feature. We're going to be showing you two different builds. I run March of the Murlocs, but I recommend Electric Eels if you can. It doesn't really matter too much, though. Defias Bandits, we like Picklock because you can cycle with them and they can snowball your gold on stage 2 and on stage 3. And then we have Blizzard with the Cold Snap. This is used to clear out the big waves on stage 2, and it freezes enemies in place. Really nice against the Stonehoofs. We have Whelp Eggs with the Flame Burst talent. This is going to be a big damage burst. You can use it against the boss, or you can use it against big waves that are coming your way to help clear them out. For Footmen, it doesn't really matter what talent you have. Fortification is pretty good because it's bugged and it gives you 30% health plus another 30% health on top of that. Shield Bash is really nice too for disrupting the boss. We were going with Shield Bash for this run. Angry Chickens are nice. We don't have a talent for them, just to hold in stage 1. And we have Dark Iron Miner. Talent doesn't really matter here either. We're just using it to deny the opponent gold. That's why we don't even care about the army slot. So for the second run, we are running the Fire Elemental, and this is for the Life Leech build. We have Immolation Aura to take advantage of leeching poison, so he heals a lot. I'm running Prowler in this build. I think I would prefer to run the Dark Iron Miner. Prowler doesn't really add anything to this run in my opinion, though it can be used to clear out Huntresses. And then finally, I have these Murloc Tidehunters. Again, I think I would prefer the chickens. Safety Bubble is my talent. Before we cover both decks, let's go over dungeon mechanics. Deadmines stage 1 mechanics. So we have Smite. He has 2 attacks, a single target, and an AoE anchor. More on that in a bit. And on the right here, we have this smaller pack of 2 Defias and Troll. That's normally where we're going to be pushing. And on the left, we have this bigger pack of a Troll and a Stonehoof Tauren. They respawn every 30 seconds after being killed, so it's easier to push from the right. At 320, a Stonehoof Tauren will spawn at these gates. Every 45 seconds, another one will spawn, and it'll walk down this pipe towards your base. You'll have to defend it. Most cost-effective answer is chickens. Otherwise, you'll have to find another way to peel, be it Footmen or Defias Bandits plus another mini. I could not find a specific trigger for this AoE knockback that he does. He seems to do it regardless of number of targets, and he seemed to be able to do it many times in a row. So it doesn't seem to have an internal cooldown. Sometimes it knocks back, sometimes it doesn't. Don't really know what's triggering that. There is no optimal opener for this stage. You'll have random spawns on the left or right starting out. So generally speaking, you're going to want to have to answer the push and meet it head on to prevent it from hitting your base too much, and then continue pushing in that direction later on throughout the map. You'll want to try and get as much value as you can with your AoE clears if you're running them. Try and maximize the value you get from your spells. In this case, there are 8 gold of Trolls, Murlocs, and Spiders for 4 gold in Blizzard. That's a great trade. And you'll notice I just killed these guards here in front of the boss. The Troll dies at 243. 30 seconds later at 213, the Troll respawns. So you can try and include that in your cleave as you try and snowball a final push to take down the boss. Second boss is Cookie. His main mechanic are these massive waves he spawns. Basically, you're supposed to deal with him with Living Bomb or other AoE. I use Blizzard. And they come every 45 seconds. And you want to try and kill them as they're passing by the tower to try and take the tower as well. If you can't do that, you might have to hold it at your base. So Cookie has a AoE splash attack and it applies poison. You can spin him away using Quillbore or another mini. Just be advised that he will cleave down Footmen very quickly if you cannot AoE him down from range. This map, you are meant to take these chests within 20 seconds. The enemy will not spawn any units, and try and take the gold mine at the bottom right using a kobold as soon as possible, or they will challenge you with their own kobold. I like to take the middle tower and then try and take the left tower. The right tower is optional. Just make sure that you are able to defend anything that comes from it. Every 45 seconds or so, a big push will come through the right tower and then the left tower and then back to the right tower, so you do have to be able to deal with that. Final boss of the Deadmines is Sneed. He has an AoE ground and air cleave attack. He's also armored, so you're going to need elemental damage to do full damage to him. 2 ways to beat him are to snowball a melee push into him, usually Footmen, or to use Quillbore and Whelp Egg Unbound Cheese. The main mechanic of this map are these pads. When they activate, they will kill the unit that walks across and clone them 5 times, and then they will reset after 20 seconds. The map generally starts off by taking these chests on the left here and pushing and taking the left tower. First unit that gets cloned are these Goblin Sappers. It's pretty much scripted. 5 of them come out, and it kills a unit that walks across the pad. In this case, I tried to use a Dark Iron Miner to beat out this Molten Giant. I lost the roll somehow, and sometimes you end up in these bad situations where you just get unlucky, and the unit that walks across is really big and beefy, and you have to deal with it. So best way to do that is to have a ranged AoE elemental unit on top of the bridge that can kind of splash them down over time, and they'll do so safely without being attacked by that unit. If you have Pyromancer, Safe are great options. Otherwise, you can use Whelp Eggs in front of the units, and that will slow them down and also help splash them down. It can get very out of hand though, and in this case, I was not able to turn back the tide, so sometimes you end up having to restart. Sometimes you get unlucky and your Kobold just walks beyond it just as the pads turn on, so you have to use an Unbound unit to try and turn the pads into a lesser threat. You know, in this case, it would have been a Molten Giant if I had not used my Dark Iron Miner to stop it. Squad units are going to be your friend in Deadmines. A lot of the time, you'll just incidentally have a squad unit cloned. In this case, you can see the Vultures got cloned. And they are a lot easier to deal with because their HP is spread out across the units. Managing the pads is key to taking down Sneed in Deadmines. Most of the damage sources in Deadmines are physical. There are a couple exceptions like the Spiders and Chain Lightning in Stage 1 and Chain Lightning in Stage 2. And then in Stage 3, we have Bat Riders, Safe Pilot, and Ogre Mage. This can help you craft your own deck. So this is the non-leeching run. We're using Footmen. We're relying on their power and their armor to get through this. Heart of Fire is the relic we're going to take. It has really nice synergy with Murkeye because he spawns so many units. You can have a lot of Heart of Fires out on the field. Now it's not as good as Glass Cannon, or Glazed Cannon, but it is still quite good. We're going to use the chickens to defend the left here. I think they're quite good for defending in this level. Even though they're down 6 levels, they will be able to hold a lot of the time and tank, surprisingly. They do a very good job of tanking, and you can use them to protect your Murkeye. So, starting off here, I'm going to drop some Whelp Eggs to clear out this big pack. When the enemy spawns units on top of each other, that's a great time to use your Whelp Eggs to try and burst several of them down. Now I'm going to spawn my Murkeye on the left, and I think this is a really good way to play him in this level when you do not have the Leeching Poison talent. I like to split my Murkeye away from the main pack, and I do my big push on the right, and then I reunite my push on the left as they cross the bridge here. And that lowers the chance of the enemy using Chain Lightning to clear all of your units. I found that if you spawn all your units on the right, the enemy has a high propensity to use Chain Lightning to clear the Murkeye, and then you no longer benefit from summoning more Murlocs as a result. And you'll see that here in the second push. So we have a pretty successful push into the boss, even though we're quite underleveled, and we do a significant amount of damage. We're not going to rush. We're just going to control the gold mines here. Because we pushed in the left with the Murkeye, we cleared out the Defias Bandits. We were able to easily drop a Kobold in the middle, and we were able to use our Dark Iron Miner to take the left gold. Now you see here, I stack my Murkeye on top of my Footmen, and this triggers the AI to use Chain Lightning on the Murkeye, and since he's so underleveled, it one-shots him very easily. Even -1 level will cause the Murkeye to die against Chain Lightning. So for that reason, I highly recommend you spawn him on the left, and you reunite your push across the bridge. And this opens up the area, even though we managed to secure it anyway because we were so far ahead, and we take the gold as a result. So now it's just a matter of pushing into the boss before he pats to the left. And even if he pats to the left, as long as we catch him, we should be fine. So I learned my lesson. I'm going to spawn my Murkeye to the left. I'm going to use the chickens to tank for my Murkeye and draw aggro away from that Stonehoof Tauren onto my Murkeye. And we are going to push into the boss now. And we are in pretty good shape because our push is pretty split up. I'm going to take the gold on the left of the Kobold, and I'm going to retake this Meeting Stone on the right to ensure that I don't get backdoored or have to deal with anything as I push my final push into the boss. Now the boss has patted to the left, but I believe he's going to pat to the right here very shortly. So I hold my eggs because I don't want to pull him too soon here. I want to make sure that my units can come into him and kill him. And that's that. This is the first time I've offered Absorption Drape, which is a really cool relic, but I don't think it has good synergy with my deck. If you tap the top left, you can always look at your deck to get an idea of which relic you should take. It doesn't synergize that well with Footmen, so I go with the Stranglethorn Commendation. And besides that, elemental damage isn't that common in this dungeon anyway. So starting out here, I always pause to get an idea of what I should play, and I'm trying to do a cheeky move here where I spawn my Defias Bandits just right so that One goes left and one goes right. And I kind of mess this up by playing the footmen, which displaces them. But I played the footmen on the right side because I want them to immediately walk into that tower. And I want the chickens to help damage down this tower very quickly and take it before the left side walks into the tower as well. So I try to freeze these enemies here so that I can get into the right side tower. But unfortunately, the enemy spawns a griffin, which I have no answer to besides this Murkeye that I've spawned. So that ultimately causes the tower taking to be delayed, and the left wave pushes into my middle tower. But it's fine because we actually have a pretty commanding lead here. If your footmen are a lower level than mine, it might be a little bit harder because they'll die a little bit more easily. But now we are primed to take the left tower. I'm not super worried about the right tower because I have eggs and I have blizzard and cycle, and I know the chests are coming back up. So basically I'm just trying to get back to these Defias footmen as I clear out these units. Now I was trying to get a little bit extra value on Murkeye, but I think I should have held and waited for the units to reach the tower to do a little bit more damage there in case I wanted to take that tower as well. So now I spawn my Defias bandits behind the middle tower to take the chest, and now I just want to make sure that this wolf doesn't do too much damage to my base. It's not too big of a deal. In fact, it may have been better to just let it come to the base because it was so low health. So now I'm going to try and split my footmen and take this right tower. Normally, I think it's better to just push on the left here and push in the middle, and you send your middle push to the right and you send your left push to the left, obviously, because it defaults there. And that way you can hit them from two different sides. This is really important if you have footmen because they are armored, and this boss, Cookie, he does elemental damage and he will quickly cleave down your footmen no matter how many you have. So if you can split your footmen up, it's a lot better than, say, sending them all on one side. But you can't actually do that, so because of that, I believe it's better to send half your push on the left side and half your push on the right side, and then use AoE to clear out the wave that might be spawning. So if you have like whelp eggs and blizzard, you would want to use those close to the boss and try and cleave them down. So basically, we're kind of in this back and forth here where we're just waiting for a good opportunity while we control the gold. And as long as you control the gold here, you can make a lot of misplays like I'm making in this particular game, and you can still come back. So basically, we're just trying to set up this nice, perfect push here. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to try and push from the right before I realized, oh, I could have just pushed from the middle and then sent those units to the right and then also pushed from the left at the same time to try and take down Cookie here. So my push from the middle isn't particularly that good. And now we're realizing what the deficiency is in our push strategy. And so now we kind of have to save up money as we wait to do a final push on the boss. So in the future, what I think I will do is I will, if I'm in this situation where I don't really have a good tank unit, because footmen are quite good in this dungeon, but they're not very good against Cookie is what I'm finding, is I will try and push from the left and then also push from the right after I clear one of these big waves. And so I kind of put that together right now as I cleave the boss with my blizzard. You see the blizzard is actually hitting the boss and most of that wave. If you position it just right, you can do that. And then I try and use the whelp eggs to do a little bit extra damage to Cookie. However, it would have been better if I was able to distract Cookie with Dark Iron Miner and let the whelp eggs do a little bit more damage. And now I'm trying to flank him on both sides, but unfortunately there's a Huntress in the way. Sometimes it just happens like that. And we're just trying to make sure that we continue to get value from playing Murkeye and splitting our push as much as possible. You can see there's a ton of Hearts of Fire just all over the map. So that relic is somehow pulling a decent amount of weight here, I would say. Not the best, but it's definitely not as bad as I thought it would be, at least with Murkeye. And I don't know what happened there, but you see all those Hearts of Flame just instantly despawn. I don't know if that was them being claimed all at once and just dying. But we're basically just cleaving them down with the whelp eggs and the blizzard. As you can see, as my pushes are not really making it to the boss. So I'm hoping to maybe employ that split push idea next time. Band of the Protector is quite good, and I was kind of torn. I think the Skeleton Whistle is pretty good as well. So like usual, we're going to try and take this chest on the left. He spawns some Defias Bandits, and the Ogre Mage is really far behind, so I decide to freeze them in place to allow me to take the chest very quickly here. And we somehow managed to bait out this safe pilot because we spawned so many units on top of each other. And now I'm in actually a very good position to take this tower. So I'm hoping to get my Murkeye behind the footmen as they get next to the tower. And fortunately, it does work out in my favor. I think if I had spun my footmen a little bit more to the left, he would have been perpetually stuck behind them, and we would have been in really good shape. So one of the neat things about Murkeye is he spawns all his stuff in the center, and this is the thing you have to worry about for Murkeye, is the boss tends to spawn Molten Giant followed by Ogre Mage on the left, and it will go through the center. And so it's kind of difficult to deal with the Molten Giant without Murkeye because all the Murlocs do physical damage and the Molten Giant is armored. So for that reason, I think that as long as you are in control of the pads, it's not super big deal, but it may be easier to just run it down the middle. It will take longer, but it may be easier to just run most of your units down the middle to deal with them. Now, the big threat of that is you may clone your Murkeye, and it may be a problem to deal with that yourself. This is a neat little trick I discovered while playing. If you spawn your whelp eggs just on the edge here, you can basically force them to be cloned as the enemies that approach clear them as the pad activates. So that's a little trick you can take advantage of to not have to deal with the Stone of Tarn or Molten Giant or what have you. So now we're in actually a very strong position because we have control of the entire map. We're going to take all the gold mines. I did try this run without taking the right tower and just running it down mid, and I found that it was a lot easier to deal with the Molten Giants, and the pads were almost always in my control. But the downside was that I never really had a strong push going into the boss because the Ogre Mage was just clearing out all my Murlocs. So it took a very long time to push into him as a result. So one way you can combat that is to just try and have units kind of just slowly filtering down the center, and that is kind of natural for Murkeye over time. So we're actually in a very good position here because we had the whelp eggs behind the Molten Giant. The save cleared and deleted herself. So now we're just trying to deal with this boss here on the right. And I know that I am at risk of spawning these footmen on the pads, but I'm not super worried about it because of the fact that we just have control of the bridge perpetually, and even though they are armored and our Murlocs are not super good against them, we are not super worried about footmen in particular because their health is a lot lower than like a Molten Giant. The Molten Giant is the thing that you really don't want to get cloned here. Basically, as long as you have control of the pads, it's not as big of a deal with this type of deck. So we go ahead and surrender here because we're not looking to push our level. And now we're going to transition to the Leeching Poison build. So we get offered Leeching Poison in the first run, and this is going to play significantly different than the last one. In fact, I don't even really think we want to rely too much on Murkeye here, as you'll see here, it basically just attracts Chain Lightning anytime you spawn a bunch of units next to your Murkeye. The AI seems to really like dropping the Chain Lightning on top of it. So for that reason, I try very hard to not spawn any units directly on Murkeye if I do spawn him. Now he is really nice for like distracting the Stone of Tarn on the left. So to prevent damage on my base here, I'm thinking, how can I prevent the wolf from charging? So I use the Murlocs because they have a shield, and I use the whelp eggs to deal with the Stone of Tarn because I think the Stone of Tarn is a lot harder to deal with overall. And with the troll coming down, I think that it's going to be hard to keep those whelps alive. With these life leech builds, you're basically just trying to get the fire elemental on the boss as safely as you can, and you're not trying to rush it. Basically, if you can get the fire elemental on the boss or the abomination, it's going to reach a critical point where the boss is not really able to spawn anything, and you are constantly just, the boss is on a clock at that point because of the life leech. So for that reason, once you shove the boss into this position, it's a lot easier to take him down. We're going to use Blizzard here because a lot of things are spawned, and we're going to get a lot of value, which is going to keep our fire elementals nice and healthy. And now, at this point, we've basically secured our victory because we have killed all of the boss's units, and we have a nice push behind our fire elemental. I'm going to use this kobold to protect my base just to not get backdoored, because sometimes the fire elemental goes on a spirit journey after these kobolds, and it takes a little bit longer to kill than you would expect. So I think the Stranglethorn commendation is the best pick here, but Strange Dust is just so much fun, I decided to go with it. And once again, I like to pause here. I didn't get my Defias Bandit, so I'm going to use the Prowler to just take these chests as soon as possible. I'm going to shove this tower in the middle as soon as I can, just to try and make sure that I don't have to deal with the push on the left as well. I don't want to pull the left mobs like I did in the first run into the middle tower because I don't want to have to retake that tower later. So now I'm going to try and splash down this tower on the left. And you can see here I do a reasonable amount of damage to the boss with the Prowler. That's the nice thing about the Prowler, in this particular build is he's really good at taking the chests. And so now I'm just going to wait for the minis to get close to my fire elemental. That way he's immediately healing and I can worry about taking the tower on the left. I want to immediately push in the tower on the left because my win condition here is to hold middle and left and take the boss down. So I use my Defias like usual to take the chest in the middle from the middle tower. It's very quick. And now I'm primed to take out this push on the right. Even though I'm gold capped here, I'm more concerned about making sure as many of these minis die and the right tower takes as much damage as possible. Now I notice that there's a Huntress on the left, and I think my win condition again is to just get the fire elemental on the boss. It plays very differently from normal Murkeye, and it is kind of a risky play. It might have been better to use the fire elemental to defend, but you know what? 1 HP is all that matters. But seriously, I think it might have been better to defend that push with the fire elemental. But you'll see here that 2 fire elementals is just too much for the boss. We're going to keep this back push away from our fire elementals just to keep them nice and healthy as we whittle the boss down to 1 health. And I really should have played this 3rd fire elemental closer to my base because there's no way he's making it to the boss. And I might have got backdoored. So we get offered 3 pretty mediocre relics here. I think Soul Seeds has the best synergy with Murkeye, so we would go with that. And we get a very good opener once again. The Defias Bandits are going to give me extra gold. Basically, whenever I see these Defias Bandits from the enemy and like a ranged unit behind the tower, I'm fairly confident I'm going to be able to secure that tower, the chest, rather, with the Defias Bandits, particularly if I get it in the opening hand. And so now I'm in a very good position to take this left-hand tower. Now, I do get a little overzealous, and I send the Prowler down mid a bit too late. You want to watch out for that. Remember, the pad recharges within 20 seconds. So if you spawn the Prowler at like 315, 310, or whatever fast unit you send down middle, it's probably going to trigger the pad again. And for that reason, it does make it a little bit harder to take this tower. Now, it does work out because the Murkeye splashes the Bat Rider that's off to the side. And now we only have to worry about these Defias Bandits on the right. Now, unfortunately, he has control of the bridge with his ranged units, but fortunately, Fire Elemental is resistant, so we're not super worried about the Ogre Mage. And we do peel our base here with the Defias Bandits, so that does cost us the chest on the left. I should have been thinking a little bit more about that, and I think that just spawning a strong unit might have been better, particularly the Prowler, and using the Defias Bandits left to secure more gold would have been the correct play in that situation. So the nice thing about Fire Elemental and Life Leech is you can afford to make a lot of mistakes like this because once it gets on the boss, you are pretty much in a very solid position to win the round. So from here, we do have to deal with these Bat Riders. I'm aware that I need a range unit, so I go ahead and set up the Murkeye to go middle. And I don't want my Fire Elemental to trigger. This is normally ideal where Murkeye is behind the Fire Elemental, but unfortunately for me, the Bat Riders cleave him down. And now I have to worry about my Fire Elemental getting cloned. I'm actually glad this happened because now I get to tell if the enemy Fire Elemental that's cloned benefits from my relics, and it appears that that is not the case. And if it was the case, I think they would have easily taken this tower because they would have been able to heal as they were taking it. But because they did not heal, they were a lot easier to defend. And now we've got a really bad situation here where Fire Elementals and Molten Giants are coming out towards our base. But this is the OP thing about Leeching Poison, is that you're able to hold this massive push with a single Fire Elemental with the Leeching Poison relic. And it's just crazy to me. I think they're probably going to nerf this in some fashion at some point here. And if they don't, they're going to have to give that relic to the enemy. But I go ahead and surrender here just because I don't want to grind my level too high. I realize it's a bit of a long one, but I wanted to show the 2 different styles here and how different they are and what you can actually do to try and clear this dungeon. So if this video was of use to you, please like, comment, or subscribe. It really helps the channel out, and I will catch you on the flip side. Take it easy, y'all. Bye-bye.